Today we are reviewing Collier's Merc. So we are excited that you gave us the opportunity to review your closet. We are going to provide you with obviously this video, and then I also have a list of all of my notes, which I will send over for you as well. If you guys are interested in closet reviews, know that we do still have some available, and would be able to offer a pretty quick turnaround time if you get us those sent in as quick as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. Overall, I love that you made this look like almost a brick and mortar kind of store. You have a really cute banner at the top. You have a picture of what I'm assuming is you and your husband. And I just thought it was really cool, the setup that you had. I did go ahead and go into the About section, and I love that you introduce yourselves, talk about how you are excited that people are visiting your store and how grateful you are that they are shopping with you. I did see that you are relatively new, and I thought that that was really cool that even though you just started on eBay in 2022, that you are already a top-rated seller. So kudos to you. That was very exciting. I'm going to go back to the shopping page and just do a general overview. I did filter to newly listed here, and that's just to make sure that we're only really looking at the newest items in your closet. I don't know if you go back and look at our stores or our closets, but there are a lot of old photos and a lot of older items that I probably wouldn't want you to evaluate us on those. So we went ahead and started with the newly listed items. Generally what I see is your backgrounds are pretty clear. It does look like your items generally do take up all of the photo, and that you are getting close-up details of each of the items. They all look pretty concise, and I think that they give the buyer quite a bit of detail. I did notice a couple that were a little bit off, like maybe this one here. I was surprised that there wasn't a whole picture first, but generally pretty the same. There are also some that had some like darker or yellow backgrounds. I believe this might be like a lighting issue, and that might be worth looking into as well. I'm going to put lighting issue on here so you can check that out. But again, nothing huge. They do look pretty similar. You do look like you're taking up the majority of the frame, and that definitely helps. One thing I did notice is that on some of your photos, you can tell you're not in square mode. If you take the photos in square mode, which is just like 1-to-1 ratio, they're going to look more like these, where they take up the entire frame versus being long and narrow and having white runners on the side. Not that that's a deal breaker, but if you're looking for some more consistency, that's one way that you could get that consistency. So I did pick out a couple of items to specifically talk about. They are the titles here. Generally, most of your titles do look pretty consistent. They are set up pretty similarly, and it seemed to be honestly pretty good. Everything in bold here, these are the ones that you put for your items. I just picked a handful, and then below that are the ones that how I would list them. So the first one we're going to look at is this Pendleton men's blue gray teal wool long sleeve button front plaid shirt, size extra large. So your listing that you have is Pendleton men's blue gray teal wool long sleeve button front shirt, size extra large. The only thing I noticed here was that there's a lot of extra punctuation. You have apostrophes here, so that's one. You have all these slashes. There's a few there that you could have skipped out. You used button front instead of button up. That takes more characters. So there's some different options here for how to get more kind of bang for your buck in your title. If I were writing that title, I would write it as Pendleton men's long sleeve button up shirt, size extra large, blue gray teal plaid wool. And that gives me 76 characters, pretty close to the 80 still, but gives you quite a few to go. CNC California 100% linen pants, blue white pinstripe pants with elastic --M. This was 76. I noticed that you had some extra punctuation again, right? The slash and these double dashes. I also noticed you had some extra spacing between your C and C California. And then you actually ended up putting pants in your title twice. I'm not sure if you noticed that or not, but those are just extra characters that we could be using to kind of allow for some more space in general. So if I were going to write this one myself, I would put CNC California. You'll notice no spaces as far as the CNC goes. Women's 100% linen pants, size M, blue, white, striped, elastic, stretch. So I kept a lot of your titles the same. I just simply kind of tweaked them to include all the characters that I think that you should have. Again, not saying that we're like the Holy Grail maker and that everything we do is 100% right, because we don't. And honestly, if you look at a lot of my titles, sometimes I think you can tell I get pretty desperate. But just another kind of set of eyes looking at your listings titles to try to offer you some help. The last one was this Howler Brothers men's blue, heathered blue, short sleeve polo, 100% cotton, size small. There's a couple things that I noticed with this. The first one being that the spelling of brothers is actually wrong. Again, we still have punctuation, so I'm highlighting those so you can see them. The other thing is heather. I think it's important to have heathered because that's actually the style, not just heather blue. It is short sleeve. I generally also don't put in cotton as the fabric, just because cotton's not technically a desirable fabric. If it was organic cotton or Pima cotton, maybe, but we definitely don't typically do that for 100% cotton. 100% silk, absolutely. 100% linen, absolutely. But I probably wouldn't do that for cotton. Instead, I would put Howler's Brothers men's short sleeve quarter button polo shirt, size S, heathered blue. You'll also notice that you had small spelled out. By putting just size S, that gives you 4 other characters that you could use for other items as well. Generally though, if I just quick scroll through your titles, they look good. You're using most of your characters. I did see a couple that looked a little bit shorter, but definitely something that I think is going to be a very easy adjustment for you, because I don't feel like your titles are very far off from being like perfectionist. One thing I did want to mention, and I honestly, this is the first time I'm opening this listing, is I'm not sure if you took any photos of style numbers, but like Prana, I know, is really big about style numbers. And you are able to actually look up the exact style of the shorts just by searching that style number. I don't know what these ones are off the top of my head, but there is a style number. So if you're able to pull these and want to like send me that number, I can walk you through the process of finding that style name. But I think that that would help you when you have titles like this that you're clearly struggling a little bit more with, to actually get the exact style name and draw buyers to it, because most buyers already know what they want in a specific brand, and I think that you'd be more likely to sell it if it was under the correct style name. But again, to each their own. Let's go into listing details. So I opened up each one of those 3 items that we were just discussing. And I'm going to start with the first photo and just kind of work through each item. The first thing I see on this is that, again, it does have this like white border on the edge, which tells me that your photo is not in square mode. There's also this very yellow border behind it, which you can tell kind of almost yellows out the color of the plaid. We have this listed as blue, gray, and teal, but to me this almost looks like yellow because of the background. I do like that you included pictures of the tags, a back photo, measurements for the chest and the length. Again, another back photo, a photo of the pocket up close, of the sleeves with buttons, another front photo, and then this flaw photo, which I thought was really good because you can see how much detail you're actually spending in looking at the items and making sure that they're in good quality. One thing I'm going to challenge you on is, one, like I said, the background coloring on this. And do we need to have so many of the same images? We have this back image, we have this one. We have this front image, then we go way to the end and we have this front image. You might want to consider the order, so that way as the buyer is looking at the item, it goes from like front to back, to like tags or measurements. You want to be very cohesive so that the buyer doesn't feel like, I guess, jumbled by what they're looking at, and everything's in a very cohesive order. But honestly, your photos are really good. I like that you included so many details, and that the buyer really knows what they're getting when they get the item. Going into the actual listing, I see that you have this listed as pre-owned and in good condition. I went and scrolled down and looked at the fill-ins. You have it as plaid, it's button up, you have it for pretty much any occasion, as dry clean only. You picked the color as gray, flannel, it's not vintage. It looks like you've pretty much picked out all the best options. You're answering like everything that you could be answering. And then in your description, you have again the title that it's 100% wool, it has long sleeve, pocket, barrel cuffs, that it's button front. You have that there is a tiny hole, which I love when I see that in the description again, because that just gives people the cohesiveness to understand kind of what's going on in your listings and to feel really good about what's going on in them. So there's a whole level of confidence there that I think that they will appreciate. So the only other thing on this I wanted to look at was shipping, returns, and payments. Okay. So I saw that you have this listed as media mail, and I know that this is kind of up for debate on multi-sellers levels, but technically media mail is only used for educational purposes. CDs, DVDs, books, textbooks, posters, anything along that line. Think media, all right? Media mail, media. So I'm not sure what made you decide that you wanted to market this as economy shipping, as media mail. I'm also unsure about UPS ground, although I'm not going to say a whole lot about UPS ground because, to be honest, we don't use UPS at all for our shipping. So maybe you know something that I don't know. But I thought that that was kind of odd that you went from using USPS media mail to using a more expensive UPS ground, which was standard shipping and didn't include like a priority option. If you wanted to do something that was a little bit faster or pricier, the padded flat rate, which this would totally fit in, would actually have been about $8.30, would have saved you about $1 for this item. Quick turnaround time though, we'll ship your package within 1 day. You do not accept returns, to each their own. If you want to do them, cool. If you don't, cool as well. Let's move on to the CNC California. So same thing applies. You've got your good condition. We'll just kind of look through the photos. You have the material, you have the sizing. You've done a lot of close-up of the bows, which I love that you took the time to like tie this nicely because not everybody does. Again, you have your measurement of waist and length. The only thing you're missing here potentially could be rise. A lot of people want to know what the rise of pants are now. But again, you have a lot of details, and I think that the buyers will really appreciate that. I would recommend potentially also maybe doing a full length shot so people can see exactly what this is measuring, because otherwise, without really being a reseller and knowing what the typical measurements are, it might be kind of hard to decide. And I'm just thinking that might give you some more opportunity for questions to be coming in. If you answer those questions by just taking photos of the whole measurement, you might not have to have as many questions be coming in. But I definitely, regardless, would intend on trying to add rise because it is so popular. Again, all your drop downs seem pretty good. You have this as mid-rise, so you clearly have measured it at some point. You have all your measurements in here. You have your seasonality. I mean, pretty much everything you could check, you've got checked. Again, you've got a great description here. Belt loops, pockets, straight leg, faux pockets in the back, regular pockets in the front. The inseam is measured from the crotch. So it's good that you have all of those items again filled out. Let's again look at shipping. Shipping for this, same thing. You have media mail as an option and UPS ground. That's like one of my biggest questions for you, and I'd be glad to kind of walk you through our process for that. If you would like to reach out, we'd be glad to go over that with you. Same thing, ships within a business day. All looks good to me. The last one we're going to look at is the Howlers Brothers. You've got a front photo, you've got some tags, measurements, close-up details. you do really great with all the close-up details of the item. I think that that's really important as well. These are some really awesome pearl snap buttons too. So we could put that in there for like, instead of quarter button, you could do quarter pearl snap would be another good option. Again, we're going to scroll down. We'll look at all the details. It's colored, it's casual, travel, woven. Did this have, I guess it does have the logo on the front. It is breathable, easy, blue. You've got literally everything checked that I think you could. You've got, again, your details down here. Awesome. Let's go back to shipping. You have this as expedited USPS priority mail, which, again, shipping is surprising me here. Howler's Brothers are typically pretty lightweight. So it should be able to go first class if you were wanting to go USPS. So I'm just, again, curious as to why we're not looking at first class options. It's going to be a lot cheaper. You could probably be able to ship this package for like $6, maybe even a little bit cheaper. It's totally up to you. If you want to talk about it, send us an email. If you don't want to talk about it, totally fine. Keep doing what you're doing. But I think that you do have some flexibility as far as shipping. And maybe there's some like lack of information or some miscommunication. I know, especially with them getting rid of regionals this year, that's definitely kind of thrown a pickle in our plan. And we'd be glad to kind of walk through that with you. I think shipping is one of the most complicated things on eBay to get right from the get-go. I was also curious to see that this one says your handling time is 3 days. I would plan on setting your handling time to one consistent time frame. Unless obviously there was a specific reason on why you chose to do this. Maybe you had to wash it or something along those lines. But overall, pretty good. We'll make sure I touched on all my notes here. So we touched about the backgrounds, maybe add full measurement photos. I'm going to also put on here rise photos because I do think that that adds a lot of likelihood for a buyer to make a purchase with you. I do enjoy that your photos literally show every single detail of every single item. I would feel confident as a buyer that I would know what I was getting when I was making that purchase. The descriptions seem to be very good. Drop downs seem good. We already talked about shipping. Let us know if you want to talk about it. So let's look at buyer demand. So buyer demand, let's talk about the Pendleton. So I searched Pendleton, and if I were going to comp this item, I would type Pendleton men's wool long sleeve button up shirt extra large. This is what I typed, and I got 709 results. Next, I'm going to filter to sold. I have already filtered to pre-owned, so just FYI. There are 1,200 plus that have sold. So if you look at 709 pre-owned to 1,200 plus sold, that is more than 100% sell-through rate. That is almost a 200% sell-through rate. I would definitely have picked this item up. The next is going to be the CNC California women's linen pants. There are 26 pre-owned available. Again, I've already selected it to be pre-owned. If I filter this to sold, there were 26 available and only 9 have sold. So if it were me, I probably wouldn't have picked them up. They do have the 100% linen going for them. They are a smaller size, so that's definitely not something that I think would help. But that doesn't mean that you like totally made a bad purchase in buying them, because there are factors that you could stack. They are 100% linen. We are going into summer. They are going to be more desirable. But it's just something for you to think of. If I was in a store, I would probably not have picked up that item. Let's move on to Howler's Brothers. So I put Howler's Brothers men's short sleeve polo size S. There are 9 available in pre-owned. Oh, I lied. There are 7 available. Let me make sure this is right on here. 7 available in pre-owned. And if I filter that to sold, there are 12 that are sold. So that, again, is almost a 200% sell-through rate. I would still have picked this item up. Now that we know what we would have picked up and what we would have skipped, the next thing we need to look into is the pricing. So if I look at the Pendleton shirt, I'm seeing a range of anywhere from 33 to 60. This was accepted on a best offer, but it was marked 80. It looks like it was sold with a 10% off coupon. 70, 50, 110, 50, 60. So they're pretty all over the place. If I were going to market this item, I would probably market it for around $60. Because there are some that are still pretty high and they were sold pretty relevant, especially with it being such a high sell-through rate. I think that it would be something that would be worth it. It is also flannel. So without it just being like a normal dress button-up shirt, I definitely think you could add some value for the flannel. So if I were going to price the item, I would price it for $60. You had this price for $50. Maybe you want to be a little bit more competitive in your price and flip it faster. If so, totally fine. I do think you could get a little bit more money out of it, but generally not bad. Based on what I see for solds here, we have $5, $18 but on a best offer, $20 but on a best offer, $7.30 but on a best offer, $18 on a best offer, $10 regular price, $20 regular price, $5. If I were going to sell this item, I would probably try to flip it for $15, knowing that I might have to accept offers on that. But again, if you look at when these are sold, these ones are pretty spread out. They aren't selling super often. So I would probably set it for $15 and then just work on marking that down little by little. You have this marked at $26. I would plan on marking that down. Otherwise, I do think you're going to get stuck with that item. Howler Brothers, again, pretty varied. $40, $30, $30, $26, $35, but on offer. There's a bunch of different options, but they're on offers. I would probably market this one, I believe, around $30. Yep. So you have yours marked for $34. I don't think that's too far off. You could leave that price or drop it a few bucks, but I do think you're pretty close. Generally, it looks like most of the items that you're picking up are pretty good quality. So we're going to talk about calculating sell-through rate. So right now you have currently 513 items listed. I'm going to view all so that it gives me my parameters. And I'm going to filter from it looks like you sold one, 512 to what you've sold. And in the last 30 days, you've sold 203 items. So that's really awesome. That's a really high turnover rate. So if I wanted to calculate the amount of your sold listings, you have 513 listed, 203 have sold. And we need to divide the 203 by 3 so that it gives us a 30-day sell-through rate. The 203 is what you sold in 90 days. We want to know what it is for the month. So in 1 month, you sold 68 items. If you divide this by your 513 currently listing, you have a 13% chance of selling your items, which does not seem great, but I promise you that it is. Your average goal of selling your items in 1 month of purchasing them is 10%, and you are at 13%. You've also mentioned that you're on Mercari and looking at going to Grilled as well. Any additional platforms are obviously going to help that as well. But honestly, it's a pretty incredible sell-through rate. One of the other things I wanted to make sure that we looked at was feedback. So it doesn't matter how many great items you have if you aren't a very good seller. But given that you're a top rated seller, let's check it out. Looks like in the last 12 months, you have 156 positive reviews, 0 neutral, and 0 negative. So it looks like generally people are really excited about using you as a buyer. So all your feedback, when I looked at them, you have 100% feedback. They said that you were a quick shipper, that the item was described, and that you had great communication. I think if you look at your actual store, you can see that. You have a 4.9 in description, 5.0 in shipping speed, and a 5.0 in communication. The biggest area for opportunity is the reasonable shipping cost. Again, it does seem like there's some options for shipping. I do think that that's a good area for opportunity for yourself, and we'd be honestly glad to help with that. My takeaways for you today is that I would look at getting more consistent backgrounds, whether that is setting up a lighting area or background removal, whatever that looks like for you. We did stop using background removal because we were able to set up proper lightage that it made everything look the same. It's not necessarily as bright as what it was before, but everything is very cohesive. I do see quite a bit of variance in that. I'm not sure if you're taking photos in different places in your home or if you have an office and you're taking photos in different places there. But I definitely think that it would be beneficial for you to look into having one set stationary spot for you to take photos. I would look at reworking your titles a little bit, just making sure that you are using every character to the fullest potential. And I'd work in consistency. So what I'm looking at with consistency is the amount of items listed for the last week or two. So on May 2nd, you listed no items. That is today. Maybe you're planning on working on them later today, but it is almost 2 o'clock and I'm not seeing any go active yet. May 1st, yesterday, you had 14. The day before that, April 30th, 12. The 29th, 0, 28th, 0, 27, 5, 26, 8, 25, 9, 24, 4, 23, 10, 22, 13, 21, 5. That's as far as I went back, was through the 21st. But just seeing that overall, there's days where you are doing just a handful. There's days where you're doing 14 or 15. There's days where you didn't do any. I would definitely look into being as cohesive on that as what you can be. Remember, you can always use scheduling if you need to, but I definitely think that that's going to be your biggest driver, is setting things active on a consistent basis. Good luck for you or good news for you, because Poshmark and eBay both now do free scheduling process. I know you said you pulled off Poshmark. Maybe you'll eventually go back, but as far as eBay goes, it is free to schedule now, which I know for us has been a game changer as well. Other than that, those are the only really takeaways that I have. Again, this is going to be going to you. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. I'd be glad to go over all of these with you or discuss shipping more. But at the end of the day, we are just really grateful that we were able to review the Collier's Merc and that we were able to hopefully give you some tips and tricks to help keep your business going. Looks like you are off to a very great start. So thank you again, and let us know if you need any help.